Hello, and welcome to NASA's Post Splashdown press conference as we celebrate the conclusion of the historic DM2 mission and as we officially return human spaceflight to American soil. I'm Bettina Inclon and coming to you from NASA's Johnson Space Center. NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley spent 9 weeks aboard the International Space Station, traveling 27.1 million miles and orbiting Earth over 1,024 times. And today, our crew is home, splashing down 45 years and 9 days after the last Americans splashed down on Earth. Moments ago, our two favorite space dads splashed down off the coast of Pensacola and aboard the SpaceX Crew Dragon, thus concluding our first Launch America mission. This historic landing marked the first return of commercially built and operated American spacecraft from the International Space Station. To discuss this historic mission, talk more about Launch America and what we have in store for NASA, is we have our briefers. Let me introduce them. First, our NASA Administrator, Jim Bridenstine, Gwynne Shotwell, President and CEO of SpaceX, Steve Stitch, Commercial Crew Program Manager, Joe Montalbano, International Space Station Program Manager, and the entire crew of SpaceX Crew 1, NASA astronauts Mike Hopkins, Victor Glover, Shannon Walker, and JAXA astronaut Soichi Noguchi, who are quarantined together and are speaking to us today. So we'll start with opening remarks and we'll take questions from reporters who have dialed in. As a reminder, please press *1 to ask your questions. We'll also be taking questions from the public who have used the hashtag #AskNASA. Let's begin. Jim, opening remarks?
Well, thank you, Bettina. This was a great day for NASA and a great day for the United States of America. I want to thank our SpaceX partners and, of course, the Commercial Crew Program here at NASA. What an amazing day. Today, we really made history. We are entering a new era of human spaceflight where NASA is no longer the purchaser, owner, and operator of all the hardware. We are going to be a customer. One customer of many customers in a very robust commercial marketplace for human spaceflight to low Earth orbit. But we also want to have numerous providers that are competing against each other on cost and innovation and safety, driving down costs and increasing access to space in a way that's never been seen before. So this is really an amazing day. But we also need to remember that this is just the beginning. Now is the time to capitalize on all of the great programs that have recently been established, to include going sustainably to the moon under a program we call Artemis, which is on my shirt. When we think about the Artemis program, we're going to the moon sustainably. We're going to go with commercial partners and international partners. We're going to use the resources of the moon to learn how to live and work on another world for long periods of time. We're going to take all of that knowledge and we're going to go to Mars. This is an amazing moment. And the Commercial Crew Program has really just proven the business model for how we go forward, and we do more than we've ever been able to do before. So I just want to say congratulations to SpaceX and Elon Musk. Congratulations to Gwynne Shotwell, and certainly congratulations to the entire NASA team, which has worked so diligently on this for so many years. It was really, really a remarkable day. It couldn't have gone any better, and I look forward to getting into the questions.
Thank you, Jim. Next, we'll go to Gwynne.
Bob and Doug, for the honor that you have given us to be able to be here today and have this great achievement. I also have to do a call out to the SpaceX, the great SpaceX team. They did extraordinary work. This was an incredibly smooth mission. I'm sure we'll go into the little foibles that we did experience over the 62 days here in the Q&A. But I do think it's important to point out that this was an extraordinary mission, an extraordinary day for NASA, for SpaceX, frankly, for Americans and anyone interested in space flight. As Jim mentioned, this is really just the beginning. We are starting the journey of bringing people regularly to and from low Earth orbit. and on to the moon, and then ultimately on to Mars. So today is a great day. We should celebrate what we all accomplished here today, bringing Bob and Doug back. But we should also think about this as a springboard to doing even harder things with the Artemis program, and then, of course, moving on to Mars.
Thank you, Gwen. We'll go on to Steve. Steve Stitch.
Thank you, Bettina. It really is a great day. I'm almost speechless as to how well things went today with the deorbit and entry and landing and recovery of Bob and Doug. You know, we really came into today, we had three real objectives, the flight objectives, really to execute the deorbit and entry of the Dragon capsule, to demonstrate that we could successfully recover that capsule, and then that we could also bring back cargo from space. There's some valuable science that we brought back in 2 freezers on board the Dragon vehicle, and I think we demonstrated all 3 of those things today. It was just an incredible day. I can't thank enough the men and women across the country from SpaceX and NASA who worked so tirelessly over 5 years to make this day happen, to make the whole mission go smoothly. It was just a great effort. I would like to thank the ISS program and the partnership as well. Today we had a perfect day to land. The wind was about 2 miles an hour at landing, and a clear day with no waves. And the work that we did with Kenny Todd and the Space Station program, and actually JAXA, who moved a cargo vehicle to allow us to have this day, I'm so thankful for that. You know, the whole part of deorbit and entry went very nominally. The entry was as expected. The parachute performance was great. The drogues deployed as we expected. The mains, we touched down just fine. We did have one slight issue as we were bringing the vehicle back onto the ship. We noticed a slight toxic vapors for oxidizer, and so they were within limits where we could have actually safely got the crew out. We took a little time to do a purge, to purge those vapors out, and to make sure that Bob and Doug were safe. We actually took a few readings inside the cabin as well. So just an incredible day. When I left the console, the helicopter had landed on the ship and ready to take Bob and Doug back to shore. And Bob and Doug were out of the capsule getting some medical checkout, so things were going very well. So again, incredible day. Thanks to our team and all the hard work to make this happen.
Thank you, Steve. Joel.
Thank you, and welcome again to the Post Splashdown press brief. What an outstanding day that we saw today, just incredible. For 60-plus days, Bob and Doug, the SpaceX team, the commercial crew program, the SpaceX vehicle were on board doing critical science for us. Bob and Doug completed over 110 hours of science, utilization, research, technology development, work that will help this great laboratory that we have, help us in low Earth orbit, and allow us to go to the moon and to Mars and with the Artemis program. Just an incredible day. And this is just a small window to what we'll see in the future. This mission had 2 crew members. We'll have 4 crew members, and allowing us to do an incredible amount of science and research and technology development on board. So a huge thanks to the SpaceX team, a congratulations to the SpaceX team, a congratulations to the commercial crew program, and just a congratulations to all involved in human spaceflight. With that, thank you very much. Back to you, Bettina.
Thank you, Joel. And now let's introduce again the Crew 1 team. Over to you guys.
Thanks, Bettina. Hey, on behalf of Crew 1 and our families, we want to say congratulations to Bob and Doug and their families. You've heard it already, but today was a big day. It was a big day for our nation. It was a big day for NASA, for human spaceflight, for SpaceX, and for our international partners. We've had an opportunity to witness all of the work and dedication that it's taken to pull off the DM2 mission, and it's been truly impressive and inspiring. As you can imagine, Crew 1, we've got big smiles on our face from what we saw from the DM2 mission. I said this after the launch, and I'm going to say it again after watching Splashdown. It did not seem like this was the first NASA SpaceX mission with astronauts on board. It seemed to go extremely smooth, but we also realized there's a lot of work to go. We need to look at the data. But again, overall, things seem to go very, very, very well. And then just a little bit on Crew 1. We are wrapping up our training earlier this week. We had a chance to see the Crew 1 capsule, and it's a beautiful vehicle, and we can't wait to have an opportunity to take it into space. But again, today is really about DM2 and a successful mission. Bob and Doug and your families, congratulations.
Thank you, Mike, and we are all really excited to celebrate when your crew launches up to the International Space Station. With that, we'll start with questions from the media. Again, press *1 to ask a question. Our first question comes from Lauren Grush.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my question. Obviously, a lot of us took note of all of the boats that were surrounding the Crew Dragon at landing. So I'm very curious how that was allowed to happen and what NASA and SpaceX plan to do to prevent that in the future. I'm assuming that can get quite dangerous if not, treated properly. Thank you.
So I'll talk about it for a second, and then I'll turn it over to Steve. Yeah, so that was not what we were anticipating. Of course, we wanted to make sure that there was a clearing for them to land. The Coast Guard did an excellent job of ensuring that. And then, of course, after they landed, the boats just came in. And we need to do a better job next time for sure. I will tell you, it's a beautiful sunny day, and a lot of boaters were out there, and they were certainly intrigued. I think all of America was very anxious to see the capsule land in the water. But yeah, it's something that we need to do better next time.
Yeah, and I'll just add a couple things. We do clear that area. We have like a 10 nautical mile area that we clear. We have a couple of Coast Guard cutters out there that were clearing the area, and they did an excellent job. It was totally clear for the actual splashdown event. And then I think, as Jim said, it was just a beautiful day. Lots of people out, maybe boating or fishing, and then saw the capsule and kind of came in. And we have some work to do with SpaceX. We'll work together to do a better job for the next splashdown.
Great, thank you so much. Our next question comes from Chris Davenport.
Congrats on a great mission. I was just wondering if you had any updates on Bob and Doug. It looked like they were feeling well, but just any updates on their health and how they're doing. Thanks, and again, congrats, everyone.
I know when I left the control center, Bob and Doug were doing well. You know, we kind of watched them in the capsule. They were moving around and looking at displays. We asked them to take a few readings to make sure the cabin was fine. We had gotten them out, and they were going through medical checks, and all indications were they're doing well. The plan from now, the rest of the day, some helicopters will take them off the ship to Pensacola Naval Air Station, and then they'll return to Houston tonight. And I'm looking forward to seeing them when they get here. It's been a great flight.
Thank you for that question, Chris. I know we're all anxious to see more about Bob and Doug and make sure that they continue to be okay. Our next question comes from Keith Cowing.
Before I ask my question, just to Gwynne, I got to tell you, I can remember sitting in a hotel lobby with you and Elon nearly 20 years ago looking at the first drawing. So I got to say, this has just got to be too cool for you guys. And I think everybody had a bit of a tear in their eye. I want to do a follow-up on Lauren's question, though, about the boats. I took all the safety classes at NASA, and nitrogen tet is not something you monkey with. I just am wondering why it is you dropped the space capsule into a location where power boats are likely going to be. I mean, there was a guy in a sailboat, another guy with a big Trump flag, mere feet away, and nobody seemed to be trying to shoo them off. Are you going to sort of maybe try to not be that close to shore next time?
At a number of different options, but you're absolutely right. We can do better. Certainly, we had all the clearance that was required at landing, and then as soon as that, I mean, that capsule was in the water for a good period of time, and the boats just made a beeline for it. So it's a big area to have to clear, and to clear all of it is probably going to require more resources. But it's, there are things that we're going to look at that we can do better next time for sure.
Everybody understands that the crews that we had deployed there, their focus was to make sure Bob and Doug got on the boat and exited the capsule safely. It was not really their job to police the area. We had the Coast Guard out there for that. The lesson learned here is we probably need more Coast Guard assets, maybe some more SpaceX and NASA assets as well. What's important is that Bob and Doug got safely on the boat. We were able to keep the area clear for landing and then ask people to move back as they came a little bit too close to the Dragon capsule, which they did. So anyhow, this was a demonstration mission. This is the time that you go learn about these things, and we'll certainly be better prepared next time.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Irene Klotz.
Thanks, Bettina, and congratulations, everyone. It was very impressive to watch today. The ISS cruise, of course, SpaceX plans to fly paying passengers. After going through this Demo 1 mission, do you still think that you're going to be ready, mature enough, the system for a paying passenger as early as 1 or 2 more flights?
You cut out a little bit in the
Irene,
beginning.
Thanks for the question.
Okay.
Yeah, this mission was incredibly smooth. Not to say that there weren't things that we want to work on and do better next time, but the capsule worked beautifully. The operations worked extremely well. So we certainly feel comfortable that we're on the right path to carry commercial passengers not too long from now. Obviously, our focus is ensuring that we get Crew 1 lifted off in time to do a handoff with Crew 2. Yeah, I think based on the results that we've seen so far, there's more data obviously to go look at. But based on the results so far, I'm very comfortable.
Okay. We're going to get a quick question from Twitter. We have Bulgari ask, how long will it take astronauts to normalize after you leave the capsule? How much to return to normal life on Earth? And if Steve, you want to take that?
Sure, Bettina, I can certainly take that. You know, it really depends. Bob and Doug were in space for a couple of months, and so they'll come back here and they'll start doing some special training. So, you know, sometimes within a matter of a few days or weeks, they're kind of back to normal. So it varies a little bit from crew to crew, but we'll get them back here and they'll start doing some special exercises and special things to get them readapted to Earth's gravity. So far, they look like they're doing really well, so we're looking forward to getting them back here in Houston.
Great. We'll take our next question from Joey Roulette.
Doing this question for Gwynne. Based on the results so far, how many missions do you foresee before you guys start flying private crews? And also, since we're planning to reuse Crew 2, reuse the capsule for Crew 2, I was just wondering if you could break down the refurbishment process for this and how, I guess, NASA came to agree to reusing these capsules after they splashed down. And for Jim and Steve Stitch, I'd love to hear your take on that as well. What kind of happened to make this crew capsule reusable for humans? Thanks so much.
Hey, Joey. So appreciate the question. Obviously, we're trying to really change the paradigm of human spaceflight. And in order to do that, you need to make sure that these capsules are rapidly and readily reusable. We've been working on this with our launch customers and with NASA for probably half a decade or so. The Dragon 2 vehicle itself was designed with far greater certainty on ensuring it can be reused. The capsule is designed for 5 to 10 missions. We have to see how things worked out after we examine the capsule when it gets back to port and back to the Cape, to our facilities there. But based on the telemetry and any visual indications that we've had so far, the vehicle looks like it's in really good shape. I'll let Steve and Jim talk a little bit about the journey on getting reusability, but it was a part of our original bid for the Commercial Crew Program.
As Gwynne said, it was part of their original bid. And, the vehicle is designed, as Gwynne said, for 5 to 10 flights. We took a look at that data, and we're continuing to look through that. And for us, it looked like it was a reasonable thing to go do. I think part of the question was, how long does it take to refurbish the vehicle? It takes about 4 months or so, so we have a lot of margin getting into the flight in the springtime frame for Crew 2. The vehicle will start actually getting, as soon as it gets back to Area 59 at the Cape, it'll start going through its maintenance. And NASA's a part of that maintenance. We have a presence over in Area 59, and we'll follow along with every step of that maintenance. And also re-look at all the certification just to make sure that there's nothing untoward. And we'll do that as we get the build up to this Crew 1 launch here in the fall. We really want to make sure we have overlap between Crew 1 and Crew 2 to ensure that we have access to ISS, and we're doing that with Joel and the ISS program.
Yeah, I think that sums it up. Our desire as an agency has been for sustainability, and that means reusability. Not in every case, but in most cases, and SpaceX has proven that they're capable of doing that. So we're looking forward to doing Crew 2 with the capsule that just came home. As Steve said, there's a lot of work to be done between now and then, and a lot of evaluation that needs to be done. But as Gwynne said, based on the telemetry and what we see, it looks like we're going to be in pretty good shape.
Great. Our next question comes from Marcia Dunn.
Shotwell, please. I'm wondering if, once the deorbit burn had occurred, was it pretty tense inside flight control there at SpaceX? And you were sitting right next to Elon Musk, and what was it like for him and for you during those final minutes of the flight, and especially right after a successful splashdown? Could you describe those moments, please? Thank you.
So there's no question it was an enormous relief after months of anxiety, making sure we could bring Bob and Doug back home safely. But splashdown was really just the beginning. We wanted to make sure that Bob and Doug exited the vehicle safely and looked good. So a lot of people were cheering after splashdown. I got a lot of congratulations on my cell phone and emails, but we weren't done until we got Bob and Doug out of the capsule. We being kind of Elon and I, he hopped on a flight. He's going to go to Houston and meet up with the astronauts. And I still have a crew here in Mission Control making sure that Bob and Doug got safely on the helicopter and will get safely back to shore. So not everybody's job is done yet, but it was an initial relief for sure. It was a greater relief when I saw Bob and Doug come out of the capsule smiling, thumbs up, looking very cheerful. That was the good moment.
Thank you so much. Our next question comes from Eric Berger.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for doing this. Question for Gwynne. It's been 12 years, actually, to this day when Falcon 1 failed on its third flight. That's 12 years. Since then, you've launched 3 different rockets, a couple of spacecraft, and now put 2 people into space and brought them back. 12 years is not that long of a period of time. Can you process some of sort of the transformation of SpaceX has happened during this time frame?
Eric, 12 years seems like a really long time to me. Candidly, it is hard to process. I didn't know that today was the anniversary of the third Falcon 1 flight, but you would know that, so thank you for reminding me of that. I never shy away from our failures. They're incredible opportunities to learn, and this company has learned a lot. But I have to say that we would not be the company that we are today. We would have not achieved this goal without the support, basically the kind of the moral support, the financial support, as well as the technical support that NASA has given us over the years. I think in August of 2006 is when we started working very closely with NASA. Though it seems like a long time, we have done a lot in that time frame. And, what's so great is we've done so much of this in partnership, kind of hand in hand with NASA. So, it's a great day to celebrate not only Bob and Doug's return and their being the heroes that they are, but also to celebrate this extraordinary relationship that we have with NASA.
And it's been a great relationship. We're going to ask some questions from social media. We have a question from Arturo Valdez, asks, for the Crew 1 team, how will data collected alter training for you so close to the launch date, and how does that impact what you do on the ISS?
That's a great question, and thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you all. The data collected is going to help us to move forward to our launch date. But again, we've got to refurbish this vehicle and get it ready for Crew 2 so that we can have some time to hand over. And so we are ready. We're ready to go to the space station. We're very close to ready to fly the Dragon into low Earth orbit. And but it's also important that we take some time to enjoy the accomplishment, celebrating with Bob and Doug's families and the NASA and SpaceX team, and just to be in the moment and appreciate all of the amazing things that have happened here. It's just a great time to be at NASA.
Okay. And Joel, anything else about how the information we learned from DM2 impacts future missions at the ISS?
So good question. You know, we took the opportunity to do some habitability studies while the vehicle was attached to ISS. So this vehicle, as everyone knows, only came up with 2 crew members. We'll have 4 crew members up there for the next vehicle. And so we did some testing on that and learned a few things. We learned testing on where to stow items and how to live in that vehicle. So just a number of items. We took we took advantage of having the vehicle there for 60 days, and that'll help us make a better vehicle in the sense of better operations for Crew 1 and Crew 2 and subsequent vehicles.
Thank you, Joel. We'll go back to our reporters in the queue. We'll go next to Stephen Clark.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. Stephen Clark from Spaceflight Now. Question for Gwynne. Since you're going to be reusing more and more of these Crew Dragon vehicles, I'm curious, do you plan on building a fleet of vehicles going forward? How many do you think you'll need to have in your rotation for the demand, both from NASA and from private astronauts, private passengers going forward? And a question for Soichi Noguchi on the Crew 1 flight. I think you're going to be the first astronaut since John Young, if I recall correctly, to fly on 3 different launch vehicles with your experience on Soyuz and the Space Shuttle. Curious if you could compare your experiences on those 2 vehicles, riding them into orbit, and how you think Falcon 9 may compare going into it. Thanks.
Okay, I go first. Thanks for the great questions. Yes, I am very honored to fly this mission, and along with my experience with the Space Shuttle and the Russian Soyuz. But the important thing is that I'm rookie to the SpaceX, and I'm learning a lot from my commander and my pilot. They've been in this training flow for a long time. I just started like last February. So this is like going back to square one. Everything is for my safety, our team safety. So every day is like a rookie. And important thing is that we have a great variety or diversity in this crew. And my small contribution to this great team is experience. So, but we have different views, different backgrounds, so name it. So the diversity brings up the resilience to this crew. So it should be a great mission. Thank you.
I think his other question was for Gwynne.
Great. Thanks, Bettina. Stephen, we are building out a fleet of Dragon 2s, both cargo version and crew version. We want to wait and see how many we have to build before we say we're done building out the fleet. We want to see how this vehicle looks after we get the opportunity to inspect it and such. But we do anticipate building out the fleet.
Thank you. We're going to go back to the lines, and next is Jackie Goddard.
Goddard for the Times of London, and congratulations, everyone. My question is for the Crew 1 folks, Mike, Shannon, Victor, Soichi. I wondered if you could describe how you watched that splashdown, what you went through emotionally as you watched it, and what it means to you knowing that your flight depended on the success of this one. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. We were together in the control center here in Houston watching the splashdown, and it was so exciting. And I would say, I think it's fair to say it was a very emotional event for all of us. To be able to watch our colleagues, our friends come home safely is always an emotional event. And then just to see how smoothly everything went during their splashdown and their reentry. So we're very excited that it went as smoothly as it did, because now that really points to the success of how our mission will be when we get a chance to launch.
Thank you, Shannon. We're going to go to Dave Mosher, Business Insider.
Thank you for taking my question. Gwynne, this one's for you. So this is SpaceX's first flight of people, obviously, and you have tons of data to go through. But I'm really curious, what was the most surprising thing your team has learned from the mission so far? And relatedly, is there any one thing you'd fix for or change for Crew 1 for these guys who are on the call?
I have such an extraordinary team here at SpaceX. I don't want to undermine any of that, but I think probably the greatest surprise is that this mission was as smooth as it is. And I don't want to take anything away from the team, but this was a demonstration mission. This wasn't the first flight of Dragon 2, but this vehicle had a lot of capability on it that was not flown during the demo 1. So I think we're surprised, minorly surprised, but obviously incredibly pleased that this went as smoothly as it did. And there's no question that we learned some things along the way that we will want to roll into the Crew 1 flight. Some we knew about pre-flight, and I think we had a lot of press on the solar arrays. We're looking to have upgrades there to make sure that the vehicle survives with margin on orbit for the 6-month requirement. By the way, the solar arrays on this particular mission did as better than we anticipated, and we certainly would have been able to complete the mission, the original planned mission duration. We had a couple months of margin to spare there. So pre-flight, we learned some things. We'll make sure we include those in Crew 1. As far as things we learned real time today, I think we want, instead of 2 generators, like a primary and a backup on the rescue boat or on the recovery boat, I think we'll probably have 3 generators, which is 1 primary and 2 backups. That's just one example, kind of a small thing that we'll want to do going forward.
Next, we have Andrea Leffenzer, and forgive me, I killed that, from the Houston Chronicle.
Hi, thanks for having us. And it was really great watching them. We can't wait to have them back in Houston. So I'd like to know how landing compared to the Apollo capsules. Was there new technology to kind of make it smoother on the astronauts, or was it pretty similar? Thank you.
I can take a crack at this one. So wasn't around during Apollo, but I would say the landing compared to the Apollo spacecraft was very similar. It just turns out the parachute technology and landing a vehicle in the water requires very similar kinds of chutes for the drogues, which deploy up high to stabilize the vehicle. And then the main parachutes are very similar. The one difference, SpaceX has chosen to use 4 main parachutes versus Apollo had 3. But all in all, I would say that the technology is very similar. The vehicle itself, compared to Apollo, you compare this Dragon, what an incredible spacecraft. Very much automated spacecraft. The crew, from the deorbit burn all the way to splashdown and landing, doesn't really have to take very many actions on their own. The vehicle does that all by itself. It's very autonomous. So all in all, it's a very similar kind of landing.
We're going to go next to Jeff Faust of Space News.
Good afternoon, and congratulations to everybody. A question probably for Steve Sitch. You talked about this a little bit earlier, but maybe a little bit more details on what's involved with going over the Demo 2 spacecraft now that it's back, and the process that will lead up to certification so you can launch the Crew 1 mission. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to talk about that. We'll do a few things to get ready for certification. in a few different areas. One, we'll review all the telemetry, all the data from the Dragon. We've done that for the whole flight to date. We'll do it now for undocking all the way through splashdown and recovery. So we'll have engineers. We do it jointly with SpaceX. We have our NASA team and SpaceX team work together and go through all the data for each of the various systems, life support, propulsion, and so forth. So we'll go through all that data to make sure there's nothing that's anomalous there. Secondly, we'll look at the parachutes. The parachutes is a very important system on the vehicle. SpaceX was doing a great job of recovering those chutes today, so we'll take those back and analyze those and look at it just to see that they're performed well. And then thirdly, SpaceX is going to take the vehicle apart. One of the benefits of reuse, I would say, is the fact that we'll take some of the vehicle apart. Some of the nose cone will come off, the heat shield comes off. We'll start to inspect part of the spacecraft, and sometimes we can learn things from that. And so we'll do that inspection, and then we'll put all that data together and head into the certification review, probably toward the end of this month or early next month.
We're going to go to Michael Sheets from CNBC.
Hi, all. Great to talk to you, and congratulations to everyone, especially Bob and Doug. I wanted to note that both of the astronauts were helped out of the capsule, and I was wondering if that's the protocol NASA and SpaceX have in place, or will future astronauts be comfortable enough to be able to step out and walk out themselves? Thanks.
I can take that question. It's pretty typical for the long-duration space flight when a crew returns to Earth that they need a little bit of assistance coming out of the capsule. If you just think about the human body, when it's been in space, Bob and Doug were in space for about 63 days. So when it comes back into Earth's gravity, the body does a wonderful job adapting to zero-G, and you can live and work very well in space. But then when you come back in the atmosphere, they pulled about 4 times the force of gravity today coming back, and then the gravity is tugging on them a little bit when they come back. And so it takes the body a little while to adapt, and it takes the inner ear a little bit of time to adapt to the gravity again. And so that's kind of what you see with Bob and Doug today, and it's very typical. And so I would expect that for many of our missions that are going to be these long duration missions with about a 6-month duration.
Thank you. We're going to go to Marcia Smith from Space Policy Online.
My question, which is to Joel. I'm curious about what this is going to mean operationally for the space station to have 4 people permanently aboard the U.S. segment. Are you going to need more resupply flights? You've talked about how there'll be more science done, so you'll need more science going up and coming back. Just what does it mean to have 4 people up there instead of 3 on a permanent basis?
So we're planning to have, 4 to 5 cargo missions, resupply missions to the International Space Station. The beauty of having the 4th crew is that person's time is going to be 100% dedicated to utilization, research, and technology development. And so today we average about 35 hours a week in that area, and we're going to increase that to 70 hours a week once we get 4 crew members up. So that 4th person won't be dedicated to that, but the time that he brings to the team, that time will be dedicated to that. So we're looking forward to it. It's something we've been planning for a while. We've had some opportunities to do 4 USOS crews, as you're well aware, in the past, and we've taken that time to learn and plan forward. So the upcoming SpaceX missions and the upcoming Boeing missions, we're excited and we're ready to rock and roll.
Rock and roll. Our next question comes from Mike Wall, space.com.
Thank you all for doing this. This is another one for the Crew 1 astronauts. I'm just curious, like what kind of conversations do you guys want to have with both like Bob and Doug? Maybe what do you want to ask them about how Endeavour handled or how it flew? What do you most want to talk to them about?
Yeah, that's a great question. We did have an opportunity after they got on orbit and docked to the station to talk to them about the launch. And that was actually very timely because we were able to do it when it was all still fresh in their mind. And they talked about the various stages of the launch and what it felt like. And even actually some of the points on the pad when they were sitting there and they were fueling the rocket and some of the feelings they had there. And so certainly that was good, and it was great to be able to talk to him that quickly. And hopefully we'll have an opportunity to do that again here in their post-landing. Again, trying to talk to them while it's still fresh in their minds. And of course, we'd like to hear all about what entry was like. The feelings, how much the G's came on when the chutes open. That's usually a very dynamic time during the flights, and so just curious what that experience was like. And then, of course, as you can imagine, we're all very curious about what it's like to splash down on the water, and then what it's like afterwards. We're hoping, we've already put in our request for a day like today when it's our turn to land, because the water looked very smooth and it was beautiful. So we're hoping that we'll get the same thing.
Yeah, that water did look like glass. Next, we'll go to Emery Kelly from Florida Today.
Hey folks, thanks for doing this, and congratulations. I just wanted to possibly get Gwynne's thoughts, and maybe more just a reaction, if you will, that this spacecraft that arrived today, Bob trusted it for his mission, and Bob will again trust it for his wife's mission, which is, pretty impressive. I'm wondering if you could just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'd like to point out that, Megan is first and foremost an astronaut when it comes to our perspective. I'm sure her and Bob have a different perspective, but she was selected to be one of the esteemed members of the Crew 2 mission. We will make sure that vehicle is as good or better than the vehicle that Bob flew in today. 2 months ago and today. Spaceflight is really hard. And though the mission was incredibly smooth, today especially was very smooth, this is still really hard. And I just want to make sure everybody understands that we still have a lot of work to do. We will learn every mission that we have. But first and foremost, our job is to make sure that the astronauts remain safe, both uphill and downhill. So what we did for Bob, I think we can do an even better job for Megan. And I hope she is really excited to fly in this particular capsule. I was really excited to have her named the pilot for the Crew 2 mission.
Our next question comes from Samantha Masunaga from LA Times.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I wanted to see if maybe this is for Gwynne or Steve, to talk a little bit more about the NTO fumes that were detected outside the capsule. I know, Steve, you were saying they're in limits, but anything that you guys are looking at, or anything that might need to be changed before the next flight?
Yeah, I can start, and then Gwynne can add. It's a pretty common practice with any spacecraft. We did it with the space shuttle after landing. We would go around and kind of sniff thrusters to see if there was any vapors from those thrusters. We did that today with Dragon, and we did have a slight hit on the sensor for the oxidizer, nitrogen tetroxide. We think there may be some mechanism where it's getting entrapped into the service section, kind of from thruster firings during entry. We got to go look through the data. This is maybe a little bit of speculation on my part. I think we'll go figure out a way to handle it better on the next flight, perhaps starting with a purge as soon as we get on the vehicle. It just is kind of a normal thing. We've had similar things with other vehicles, so I wouldn't say this was a big deal at all. It was something that the SpaceX team took extra precaution with, just to make sure that their personnel on the ship were safe, and then also Bob and Doug. So we'll go look at the data and see if there's anything we can do better next flight. One of the things that I would say about this NASA and SpaceX team, and we will get hundreds of comments and hundreds of things to look at in post-flight. Even though the flight goes so well, one of the things that we do in spaceflight is we just pore over the data and try to learn from it to try to make it better. Because as Gwynne said, spaceflight is very hard and it can be unforgiving. And so you try to look at very minute changes in data and things that you see in the data from the flight, learn from that and try to do better.
Yeah, we made sure that based on all the telemetry that we had, that we didn't find any system breaches. We had them sniff the thrusters. And as Steve mentioned, we did initiate a service section purge. I think we'll probably do that sooner next time. It was also an incredibly calm day. There was not a lot of wind blowing on the capsule, as will probably be blowing more in the future. But it was a good lesson for us. We took an extremely conservative approach here. We certainly could have brought them out of the capsule sooner than we did, but we made sure the inside of the Dragon, the cabin, was not experiencing any fumes. Bob and Doug, in fact, I heard Doug say, look, take your time. We want to make sure we're doing the right thing here. Take the time that you need. And they weren't in a particular hurry. So it was a good lesson learned. We'll probably initiate a purge sooner. There probably will be more wind on future missions, and we might not see this in the future. But I think we did the right thing. As kind of high anxiety driving that it was, I really wanted to see Bob and Doug come out. But I think we did the right thing and got the levels to nearly indetectable before we opened the hatch.
I would just add that just modify maybe what Steve said. He mentioned that it wasn't that big of a deal. It's pretty common, and all of that is absolutely true. What is not common is having passers-by approach the vehicle at close range with nitrogen tetroxide in the atmosphere. That's not something that is good, and we need to make sure that we're warning people not to get close to the spacecraft in the future.
Our next question comes from Zachary Hall from SpaceExplorer.com.
Sure. So kind of on that same token, there's clearly an education opportunity for the public, especially with splashdowns in places where there hasn't been in 45 years, to stay back. As I watched the stream, I was learning about what was dangerous about it. I'm curious, is there sort of a safe viewing distance that the public could understand and view from? And also kind of on the same idea of inclusivity and involvement in space, what's kind of the better way to channel your excitement for these activities? I know we're in the middle of a pandemic, and like a parade would probably not be appropriate, but is there something that could be done to kind of celebrate the moment and also involve the public in?
Yeah, safe distance, and then maybe I'll let Jim talk about the public. But
we're celebrating the moment, and we invited everybody to join us online and to share in the moment in all the different social media platforms. SpaceX did a great job with the broadcast, so I think there's a lot of different ways that we can do it. But certainly, approaching the spacecraft is not among those ways.
We're going to be wrapping up in a few minutes, but let's take one of our last questions from Jackie Waddles, CNN.
Hey, folks. Thanks so much for doing this, and congratulations. So I was curious if we could get some insight into what's ahead for Bob and Doug over the next few hours and days. Are they going to get to go home with their families tonight, and how might the pandemic change how their post-splashdown rehabilitation goes?
I can start off. Bob and Doug already have left the ship, and they have been transported by helicopter to Pensacola. They will come back here to JSC via aircraft later on this evening. They'll get some medical evaluations. I think I'm not quite sure whether the plan is to stay on site for observation or maybe go back to their families. Certainly, a lot of precautions were made to protect for the pandemic. Everybody on the ship was quarantined on their personal level, self-quarantined for a couple weeks. They got tested. So we went through a lot of precautions to protect Bob and Doug and to make sure that they're safe from the virus. And we're just excited to have them back here in a few hours. So.
Our last question is from Marina Corinne.
Congratulations on a successful splashdown. This question is for Gwynne. Gwynne, you said in your opening remarks on this call that this mission experienced some foibles over its 62 days on orbit. What foibles were you referring to?
Actually, the foibles that I was referring to were today. We had our backup generator on the Go Navigator stop working before we set sail. So next time we're going to have 2 backup generators. We did mobilize another one, but it wasn't going to get to port in time for the vehicle to set sea and make sure it got to Bob and Doug. We had that vehicle flanked with other ships, so we were pretty comfortable. But that is one. And then the discussion that we were just having on the oxidizer on the outside of Dragon. We will work on that op to make sure that we keep the astronauts and the folks around the capsule safe. Those are the only 2. I think we had the mission on orbit was incredibly kind of quiet. I can't recall offhand whether there were some anomalies. There may have been some small ones, but certainly nothing that stands out.
Thank you, Gwynne. And with that, we'll turn it over to Jim Bridenstine for some closing remarks.
Well, thank you to Bettina, and thank you to everybody who participated in this. A big special thanks to Bob and Doug and their families, the entire NASA team, and of course the SpaceX team for what an amazing day this was, a historic day. A couple of things. It came up earlier. Somebody asked Gwynne about what size of a fleet do you need, and do you expect to grow it? And of course, as a private company, SpaceX is looking at what the demand is. And I'm going to tell you what our goal is at NASA. Our goal is to make sure that there is a big demand in the future. And I would love to see a fleet of Crew Dragons servicing not just the International Space Station, but also commercial space stations, which is why we're working so hard every day to commercialize our activities in low Earth orbit, whether it's industrialized biomedicine or advanced materials. There's a lot of hope for humanity on Earth based on what the microgravity of space can provide. So the future is very bright, but it's going to require these public-private partnerships, which we have now proven can be very, very successful. I also want to say another question came up about how SpaceX has, changed since launching, Falcon 1 so many years ago, and even the 3rd launch of Falcon 1 was a failure. Let me be clear. The reason we had success today is because SpaceX is so good at adapting, and the NASA team is so good about sharing what the engineering challenges are, and ultimately them responding. It has been not without some pain from time to time, but it has been an absolute amazing partnership, and it really just culminated in this spectacular event today. When NASA comes and we say we want to create high-level requirements, we have a payload capacity that we need, we have safety requirements that we need, and then we allow a private company like SpaceX to go and innovate. And miraculous things happen. We launch rockets with 9 engines. We launch rockets where the launch abort capability is integrated into the spacecraft propulsion system itself. We have a pressure vessel inside of a liquid oxygen tank. These are things that NASA never would have done on its own, but because we set the high-level requirements, and then we say to the private company, we say, prove to us that your engineering is sound through both engineering and testing. And as time went on over the years behind us now, SpaceX proved, and we of course as an agency had to make sure that what they were telling us was accurate, and then testing it. And I will tell you, it has been just a magnificent thing to watch. So again, congratulations to the SpaceX team, congratulations to the NASA team. It's been an amazing partnership. There's a lot more to come. One other thing before we close out. Eric Berger sent a tweet yesterday, and in that tweet he talked about how we have been without a human spaceflight program now for 9 years, and he said now we've got Dragon, and we've got Starliner, and we've got Starship, and we've got Orion, and Blue Moon, and other vehicles that are on the table. May it never be that the United States goes a day without a human spaceflight capability in the future. And I would double down on that and say, I'm the first NASA administrator in history that was not alive when we had people living and working on the moon. We have to make sure that another generation doesn't miss this opportunity. Today was a great victory, but it is just the beginning. The Artemis program is our sustainable return to the moon. We're going to go to the moon and we're going to stay. We're going to learn how to live and work there for long periods of time, and we're going to take that onto Mars. I want to thank Eric Berger for that tweet, and I also want to say that if we do things right, we will get the strong bipartisan support that we need to make sure that this program is sustainable into the future and that it grows into the future. And I also want to thank the President and the Vice President for their amazing support. The budget request before the House and the Senate right now is $25.2 billion. When my name was first floated for the NASA administrator, a little over, I guess, 2.5 years ago about now, actually it was longer than that, the budget for NASA was $18 billion. So $18 billion to $25.2 billion. We've got a bright future, a big agenda. This is an amazing opportunity, not just for the United States of America, but for the world. But I would implore our members of Congress, bipartisan, House and the Senate, to please fund the budget request for NASA. We have proven that if you give us the resources, we can deliver, and our partners can deliver. And this is about all of America. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for getting us to where we are. And I would implore the folks that fund our agency to get an appropriation done that justifies the great work that we've already done. So thank you guys so much. What an amazing day. We made history today. Congratulations to everybody.
Thank you so much. That concludes today's press conference. Have a great day.